Someone Better by I_am_Ellie on AO3. Episode 24, Chapter 19, The Way Life Works. Shouta, come on, we have to get up, Nemuri said, tapping at his knee. Shouta curled further into himself in the corner of the waiting room. Shouta, come on, we need to go. You have to get some sleep and some food. Shou, can you hear me? Shouta could hear her, but he wasn't sure he would be able to answer if he tried. It was like there was something lodged in his throat, preventing speech and making it hard to breathe. There was still adrenaline from pain and panic thrumming through his veins, still blood staining his hands and making his hair stick to his neck. But it was fading and was quickly beginning replaced by a sense of overwhelming dread and pain. His knee was aching, as was his head. There was a sharp, throbbing stinging just where his head met his chest. The letter Z carved into his skin, only covered by a sterile white bandage. When the medics had been called, and they found him, they'd been in shock, dragging out the man's private quarters and taking into the mess hall by Tensei. They cut off his shirt to have better access to the wound. Now all he had was red-stained undershirts and a pair of jeans, and it was freezing. He didn't know what time it was. Time had seemed to melt together after a while. All he knew was that it was late, and he was tired, but his own anxiety over Hizashi and Izuku wouldn't let him sleep, wouldn't let him think. They found Hizashi in a pool of his own blood, and no one would tell him anything. Izuku had been in surgery for the past few hours. He could lose everything that meant anything to him just like that, when he least expected it. And he wasn't even sure how it happened. He felt like the moment after you get punched in the face. Dizzy, disoriented, confused, shocked, hurt. Nemuri tried to prompt him to stand again. Shouta didn't even know if he could move. Everything felt so slow, and thick, and empty, and full. Like he was floating, or if he was drowning, or like he was somewhere right in between floating and drowning. But he still couldn't breathe. It was like he was going through the 5 stages of grief, and they weren't even dead. He hugged Izuku goodbye just yesterday morning. He'd kissed Hizashi goodnight the night before. He talked, and he loved, and he laughed, and he hadn't even known that this was what was waiting for him. It wasn't fair. He hadn't known those moments might have been his last. He hadn't known, but they might have been. And Shouta hasn't even gotten the chance to make the most of them and to cherish them. And now he might not get any more chances. Shou, Nemuri said again, and her voice was softer now. Come on, Shou, let's go home. It's okay. It's all gonna be okay. Liar. Shouta nodded, but it was like his legs were weighted down by bags of flour. When he tried to stretch them out in front of him, it was like it took an inordinate amount of energy, his back hitting the wall behind him with a thud. His throat felt dry. He swallowed thickly. His eyes were burning, like the moment after he uses his quirk. Explain. He rubbed the back of his head against his forehead. It was so cold. His head dipped forward onto his chest, chin brushing against the rough, white bandages adorning the bottom of his neck. I don't think I... Explain. Izuku and Hizashi, Nemuri guessed. Shouta nodded, stiffening. We don't know anything about Hizashi yet. Only that he got injured in the field. They haven't sent a nurse back to tell us anything yet. And Izuku... Nemuri's voice took a choked quality. God, Shouta, I'm so sorry. What happened to him? Shouta asked, voice cracked slightly. He wasn't sure if he'd like the answer. I didn't notice. God, Shou, I'm so sorry. I should have noticed. She took a deep breath, wiping under her eyes. Her mascara was smudging. It was hard to look away from the dark smears under her eyes. The doctor says he has appendicitis, and I didn't notice he was hurting. He told me he was hurting, but he made it look like it wasn't that big of a deal, and I was tired, so I sent him to school anyways. And I know that isn't an excuse, but I did. And I got called at school after a few hours, and they said he had a high fever and he couldn't stop crying, and he just passed out right there, and we got an ambulance, and his appendix just bursted on the way to the hospital. They say the appendicitis is rare at that age, but the chances of rupture are higher, and he he's still in surgery right now, and they just aren't sure, Shouta. They could go in there and clean everything up and stitch him back up, but if he gets an infection, they just don't know. Shouta nodded, and he didn't know why, but the information made him feel lighter somehow, like he wasn't in the dark anymore. And they don't know about Hizashi. We don't know about Hizashi, Nemuri corrected. Because they haven't sent anyone to tell us yet. I'm sorry, Shouta nodded again. The slight fog that had been over his mind cleared, just a bit, and he felt tired, exhausted. He reached an arm up, running through his hair at the back of his head, and pulling sharply, right at the root. Stay here. Stay awake. The small hand clasped over his arm, releasing his grip from his hair. Don't do that, Nemuri said, holding onto his hand with both of her own. There was dried blood from his hair under his fingernails, almost brown in color and uncomfortable. Nemuri's eyes widened when she saw it. Shouta taped the bandages on his chest lightly, in explanation. You need a shower, Nemuri said, voice unwavering, and the set of her jaw determined. And a change of clothes. And some food in your belly. Come on, Sho. Hizashi will probably kill you if he saw you like this. My legs are heavy. I am tired. I don't know. I can. Then I'll help you, okay? I'll help you. But you have to get up, Sho. Okay? Shouta nodded, and Nemuri helped him up to his feet, despite Shouta being at least 4 inches taller than her. She made it look far too easy. First food, Nemuri said, grabbing his arms and leading him along, even as he stumbled over his feet. McDonald's alright for you? I have like 1,000 yen on me. They went to the nearest McDonald's, the teenager behind the register's eyes widening at the sight they made. A tall woman dressed in sweatpants and a hoodie with tangled hair and smudged eyeliner, and a tall, unshaven man with blood-stained undershirt and a bandage adorning his chest. They made quite the pair. Nemuri ordered him a large burger with everything, a strawberry smooth shake, and a large fry. Nemuri grabbed a chicken sandwich and a medium fry with an iced coffee. That probably wasn't recommended for this time of night. Shouta wasn't sure he would be able to eat all of the food in front of him without being sick. Nemuri seemed to know, too, but Shouta knew she would be happy so long as he ate something, whether he finished his food or not. What time is it? Shouta asked, biting into a fry. His hands looked dirty, and there was still blood under his nails. He couldn't quite bring himself to care. Late o'clock, Nemuri said, taking a sip from her coffee. She glanced at her watch. 10 p.m. My birthday is in 2 hours. Shouta stated. Nemuri nodded. And it's selfish with what happened, but my mind keeps going back to that. My birthday is in a couple hours, and I might lose everything. I don't know what I did to deserve that kind of karma, but it must have been horrible. You didn't do anything, Nemuri stated, through a mouthful of chicken. Things like these just happen. There's nothing anyone can do about it. That's just the way life works. I wish it wasn't. I know, Sho. I think we could all safely say life has fucked you over at this point. Huh? We were planning on adopting Izuku, I think. Shouta said. His voice sounded empty, like all of his grief and confusion and adrenaline and shock and mourning had been scooped out of him and bagged up and thrown away in the waiting room. And now there was nothing left. After we had him for a few more months, getting married, so we could. This mission was really going to help with that, with paying off our debt. God, Nemuri said, settling down her burger. God, I'm sorry. It's the way life works, right? Shouta said dryly. He drank from his milkshake. Nemuri, if they die, they aren't going to die, Nemuri said. They won't, okay? They're gonna come out of this, and we're gonna laugh at how worried we were in a couple years, and Izuku's gonna show off his appendicitis scar and pretend he got them fighting a bear or something. And we're gonna tease him about it until the day we die, and everything is gonna be fine. We don't know what happened to Hizashi, Shouta said. And even the doctors aren't sure about Izuku, just... Nemuri, if they die, I won't have anyone left except you. Okay? Do you understand that? My parents are gone. My sister, my nephew, my boyfriend. Everyone would be gone. And you would be the only one left. So you can't die too, alright? You have to stick around. Okay? Don't leave. Alright? Don't leave or die or anything, just... I know, Nemuri said. I understand, okay? I understand. I get it. And he'll be okay, alright? They aren't gonna die. Don't... Her face became pained. Don't release that negativity into the air or something, okay? Everything's gonna be okay, and I'm not going to leave you, okay? I won't leave you. Shouta nodded, chest feeling just a little less tight, and he finished off his burger, grabbing a handful of fries, and trying to finish those too. Wanna take the shake to go? Shouta nodded, grabbing his milkshake, and Nemuri left the remainder of her money on the table, the two throwing their trays away on the way to the door. That numb feeling was back, and he welcomed the exhaustion as he kicked off his shoes at the front door of his apartment, tearing off the stupid socks as he did and tossing them aside. His legs hurt, so he tossed back a couple painkillers and replaced his pants with pajamas bottoms, fitting the leg brace over his knee. The shirt he didn't bother with, tossing it into the bin at the earliest convenience. Nemuri took refuge on the couch, wrapping in blankets and hugging a pillow close to her chest. He wouldn't bother with the shower until morning. Knowing his luck, he would fall asleep and burst his head on the tile. He dragged two weighted blankets out of the hall closet, tucking himself underneath them and curling into a ball. He tried to imagine the weight and the warmth was Hizashi, hugging him close and snoring in his ear because he had to be loud and mildly annoying in his sleep too. It was too quiet, and his bed still felt far too empty. He wished he could say he got a good night's sleep that night. His arms felt like lead when he washed them the next morning. The water falling against the tile felt too loud, the smell of soap too overwhelming. His own hands running through his hair like millions of tiny daggers running along his scalp. When the water started to sound like the buzzing of clippers, he quickly turned it off, taking a moment to lean against the wall of the shower stall. Too loud, too sharp, too much, too cold. Everything felt too cold. Even when he went back under the spray, the cold water practically non-existent, and the hot water steaming, it still felt too cold and too heavy, like chilled liquid metal had been injected in to replace the marble of his bones. He chose the most comfortable clothes in his closet because he didn't think he could handle wearing anything scratchy or uncomfortable that day. A pair of exercise shorts and a baggy hoodie that had a weird fishing logo on it that had appeared in his closet one day without much reason. He hated socks and shoes on a good day, so he decided not to bother with them and grabbed a pair of flip-flops, despite the chilled weather. When he left the bathroom, Nemuri was sitting up in the living room, the dark smudges under her eyes cleared away and replaced by fresh lines of eyeliner, hair free of tangles, and wearing tight white pants and a flowy black shirt. She was scrolling through her phone, frowning as she did, but looked up when he walked into the room. "Good morning, Shou," she said, and Shouta was grateful her voice was so quiet. "Happy birthday." Shouta smiled slightly, staring at his flip-flops, clad fleet, and it felt weak even to himself. "I'll make a go bag. Don't know how long we'll be there, What do you need? Shouta frowned. Painkillers for another ball. I think there's some granola in the fridge. Baby carrots. His voice sounded hoarse. Weighted blanket? Nemuri prompted, and Shouta nodded. Sunglasses and headphones too. And Shouta nodded, crossing his arms and gripping his elbows tightly. That bad, huh? Her voice seemed to quiet by several notches when she said that. Yes, Shouta said. It was a whisper, but it still felt sharp. You got it, Nemuri said, running off to grab a duffel bag and several blankets from the hall closet and returning to the living room with it, immediately pouring an entire box of chocolate-covered granola bars into the bag. It took a total of 5 minutes for Nemuri to pack the bag and get her shoes on, and then they were off, heading towards the hospital in what was probably too fast for morning traffic. Nemuri kept the radio off for the entire car ride there, even though Shouta knew she, much like Hizashi, liked filling the empty spaces with as much noise as possible. The windows were tilted, but Nemuri still reached into the glove department, pulling out a plain pair of sunglasses, and handing them to him without a word. Might want to put these headphones on once we're at the hospital, Nemuri said when they were halfway there. It's gonna be loud. Shouta was lucky to have someone like Nemuri in his life. When they were directed to the waiting room again, the hallways felt longer. Sounds were muffled and the lights were filtered by the glasses. But the pounding of his heartbeat was still loud, chugging away in his chest, and it felt as if the hallways might drag on eternally. When they've been there an hour, a doctor walked in, wearing a carefully schooled expression and a pristine white coat. He made a beeline over to Shouta and Nemuri, and Shouta carefully eased the noise-canceling headphones off his ears with shaking hands. Hello, Mr. Aizawa, Miss Kamina, the doctor said, and his voice was soft and quiet, and despite how grateful for the small receive of loud noise assaulting his ears, that usually wasn't a good sign coming from a doctor. I was a surgeon on your ward's case. Do you mind if I sit down? So it was one of those conversations. Nemuri made a go-ahead gesture. The doctor sat on one of the stiff plastic chairs. This, I'm afraid, is a complicated situation all around, the doctor said gravely. When the appendix broke, This, I'm afraid, is a complicated situation all around, the doctor said gravely. When the appendix burst, it created a pocket of abscess, like a little pocket of infection, in the abdomen. Because of the severity of the rupture, we had to remove the appendix immediately, and we inserted a tube into his abdomen to drain the infection. It was a long, complicated process since the appendix had been burst for so long during the ambulance ride, and because of his high fever. What does that mean? Shouta asked, hoarsely. It means, the doctor sighed. It means, should his fever go down and the antibiotics start taking effect, he could conceivably make it a full recovery. But if the fever does not go down, and he doesn't start noticeably improving in the next few days, we just don't know. But couldn't you heal him? Nemuri asked. You couldn't tell me there's not at least one person in this hospital with a healing quirk. We get that question a lot, the doctor said. We can't heal an infection. If we tried, it would most likely just come back. And with a weakened immune system, that just won't end well for anyone. This is a delicate situation all around, you understand? Should Izuku recover and should his infection subside, once he builds up the strength, I can find someone in the hospital with a healing quirk and have them completely heal the surgery scars. Until then, this is just how we have to proceed. Where is he? Shouta asked, tapping at his elbows nervously. Right now, he's in the pediatric extensive care unit in isolation, and our nurses are keeping a close eye on his infection. And you have his entire medical history? Yes, we are aware that your child is quirkless. Shouta was too tired to correct him. And it will not be a problem for our nurses. If it becomes a problem, we will fire them immediately and put more trained, accepted nurses on the case. Okay, Shouta said, taking a deep breath. Okay, Okay. And Hizashi Yamada? Nemuri asked. The doctor smiled at them sadly. I'm afraid for that one, I haven't the faintest clue. He's not on my case. I can ask around, though, if you like. Shouta nodded quickly, and the doctor stood up, walking out of the waiting room and back down the hallway. See? Nemuri said. Izuku's alive. He's alive, Shouta, and he'll be fine. He also just had surgery, and he had an advanced infection in his abdomen, and a tube sticking out of him as well. Shouta said numbly. And the doctor doesn't know if he'll survive the week. You heard him. Sue's a strong kid, Sho, Nemuri said. He'll be fine. You have to believe that, okay? You met him. No one's gonna kill Izuku but Izuku. That's not comforting either, Shouta stated. He ran a hand through his hair, put his headphone back on. I'm tired. He closed his eyes, leaning his head back against a plastic chair. He did not sleep. Would you look at that? Hi, Shouta. How's the kids? Okay, I know this should be a sad, chapter for me reading, but I've read this, so I'm not sad. I'm not sad. There's a certain chapter that I'm not looking forward to doing because I will cry. You guys don't need, well, maybe you guys do need to worry about that one. Never mind. I will cry while I'm reading that certain chapter, that certain scene, because I can't handle that, alright? Anything but that, please and thank you. Like, yes, I get it, you're going for realistic, but stop it. But I think so far we've been having something interesting. I would go into Psychology Corner, but I don't want to, so you guys are stuck with nothing. No notes this time. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.